I want you to close your eyes and think of the best season ever. Think of a season from an owner's perspective of, okay, we haven't been able to really develop anything the last year and a half. We get the new generation car shortly, past halfway in early July. The Gen 6 cars are on their way out, so really no need to build new machines or anything. We can just stay with our stable of cars. We even have some more road courses, so we don't necessarily need to build a whole lot of new cars. We can use about 2 road course cars, probably 4 intermediate cars if we're a big team. We can use probably 2 to 3 super speedway cars because we expect 1 or 2 of them to get destroyed this year, but it's not going to be that expensive. We don't have to pay our crews to go out for the entire weekend. We can just chill and relax, just show up, race one day of the week. I think it's going to be a pretty easy season. And then we start getting through and through, and really, the Indianapolis GP was just a microcosm of the entire year and how NASCAR is. And so, this is here by popular demand. I had some people wanting my opinions, a good rant about this last race, and really we'll just focus on Indianapolis and continuing on. So I even mentioned specifically in the live show that the road courses that we go to are like really, really, really bad for stock cars. I don't know why we keep insisting to go to so many road courses when people are already bored of them. People already are like, okay, well, hey man, this is way too many road courses. Then we go to tracks, outside of Sonoma and Watkins Glen. And Road America is a good track too, but other than those three, why are we going to so many tracks that have 90-degree turns in them, that have sharp, slow rolling corners that are literally one groove? Who designs road courses like that? Like, we're not on a go-kart track. We're not racing little, motorcycle engines on go-karts to where we can still make it work too wide. Like, think of the chicane at the Daytona road course right before the start-finish line, and the clash. They end up spinning out right there. Yet again, just a one groove, pretty close to a 90-degree turn. It makes absolutely no sense. They just want chaos and wreck it. And that's what happened again this week at the Indianapolis GP. Last thing I mentioned in the live show specifically again was like the purpose of curbing and how traditional road courses use it and how they use runoff room to where it's not necessarily like a deterrent for a driver to not use this part of the track. It's usually curbing is more to protect the actual track versus like when you take a corner and it's just grass and you kind of drop your tires off into the grass and you bring them back up onto the track, that tears apart the side of the asphalt. And so typically you see road courses and other tracks and even street courses usually put curbing over curbs, like physical curbs, like sidewalks and stuff, so they don't damage the infrastructure. And then you see a lot of, like, Road America had some curbing here and there, but it's mainly grass. But when it did have curbing, it was mainly to just protect the actual asphalt itself, because that's expensive. It's easy to replace a concrete curbing. It's more expensive to keep replacing asphalt every time it's been knocked around or knocked off, or it starts to fall apart. And so the decision to use, they keep using these turtles, and I don't understand. And these were, an Indianapolis issue. This aren't the quote unquote generic turtles that NASCAR kind of just carries around. Indianapolis put those down in the chicane, and I'm trying to think. So they're like sheets of metal that were formed into the round curbs that we know them to be, but I can't imagine they're 1/4-inch steel, because you got 3,400-pound stock cars, Indy cars going over them. And so I have to imagine they were using either 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch. And if I go any higher, I mean, once we get to 3/4 inch, it's still looking bad. God forbid it's anything. It's a thicker piece of metal that they use to form those curbs in. The higher, the thicker it gets, the worse this outcome becomes. I posted on Twitter because I don't know if they were showing it on the broadcast or not, because I stream all my races from Sky Sports and other links that I find, and so I always have a commercial-free broadcast to watch. I never watch it on quote unquote NBC. I still have their commentators and stuff, but I never see commercials. I always have a feed going. And so every time there was a caution early in the day, they would go out and they would start working on those curbings. And the first time I post the picture, they brought out a bunch of sledgehammers, and these guys are just whacking it with the sledgehammer, man. Like, and that's why I was like, man, you love to see it. What a time to be alive, man. We got the highest touring division in America at the most historic racetrack, and these guys are repairing, these curbings by just slamming them with sledgehammers. And then later in the race, when I believe Eric Almirola's splitter got literally ripped off and got caught underneath the curbing, they took that out, and then I guess they were trying to weld them back together, because they did bring out a welder and a grinder, and I think they were either welding parts of it together where it started to deteriorate and start to kind of tear apart, and nobody mentioned this at all. And then obviously we have our two incidents at this area, and Jeff Burton was like, yeah, they've been working on this all day, but we didn't show it to you because they did it so quickly. It wasn't a big deal. Jeff, I watched every single caution period. They were working on those curbs the entire day. They knew that was an issue. It's not like it just happened left and right. And so I guess let's focus on, the main thing you want me to talk about here, and that's the incident with 5 to go, or at least the first incident that happened there. And so the caution that started was legitimate, because I believe it was Chastain's car had a piece of the undercarriage get ripped off. And so, and I mean, dude, we're seeing pieces that, like, grass never destroys cars this much. People bitch and moan about grass and we need AstroTurf. Why are we running directly into these turtles? Like that's more destructive than grass ever has been. Sure, you see, the front end get ripped off when cars get into grass, but that doesn't destroy the entire suspension. You don't have to rebuild a car like LaJoie when he got airborne, avoiding a wreck. Like, these cars don't have the suspension capabilities to absorb impacts like that. When you throw them in the air then land them, it's not like your regular car. Your regular car would struggle to handle that, much less these stock cars that are built to just keep the cars low to the ground. The springs and the suspension are about as stiff as you can get them, because they want them to hold a certain position the entire time. It's basically like you're making these jumps on leaf springs, and it's wild. And so obviously they have a caution on lap 34. They have debris in turn 6 in the chicane, and for whatever reason they let him go green again. And so bless Martin Truex Jr., because when you look back at COTA, and these wrecks are very, very similar to COTA, to where there was basically no way to see what was happening, and these drivers, God bless them, they just stay in it. They stay full throttle in it. And so when Truex spins on lap 77, and there's sheet metal and shards of metal flying towards the tires and flying towards the fans, like, this is what I mean when I tweeted, hey, they're trying to kill someone. I'm not really caring about the drivers right there. The catch fence that they have, obviously, it's a more secure catch fence than other road courses, but you still had fans on the other side of that, on the grass, on a grass hill that's elevated above that catch fence in some areas, and so all you need is just a shard of metal to fly over, hit somebody, and you end up having a big lawsuit, which for whatever reason NASCAR doesn't care about. Like, the only time they care about lawsuits is with the lightning, the 15-mile radius, because some dude got struck by lightning at Pocono, despite the fact it was after the race, despite the fact he was walking around with a metal umbrella, and despite the fact there's multiple reports of people telling him to put the umbrella down so he doesn't get struck by lightning. They still lose that lawsuit. But they don't care about shrapnel heading towards the fans at all. Heaven forbid you have a kid get hit by some shrapnel or something there. And so for whatever reason, NASCAR keeps it green, despite the fact there's just debris littered across the that runoff area, which we've been using the entire weekend. So Truex learns from his mistake at COTA, when he ran to the back of, I think it was McDowell, or he ran to the back of somebody. He gets damaged, and he's trying to get out of the way, so he lifts. And then, if you remember, Cole Custer slams him behind him. And so in this area, in this situation, Truex is a smart guy. He sees shrapnel, he sees smoke flying towards the wall, or flying towards the tires. He lets off. Nobody else does. Truex, we're here to race, not to pace, my guy. Get out of the way. So they dump Truex for absolutely no reason. Truex is the only guy who slows down. And so they keep it green, then they come back. And this is another situation of, is NASCAR truly this inept? Do they only have 2 guys looking at the track the entire time? This is very similar to the Trey Hutchins situation in the Truck Series, to where their excuse was, well, Crafton was going down pit road. We didn't notice Trey was slow in turn 4. And then Johnny Sauter completely creams the dude out of 4, nearly kills both of those guys there. And so in this situation, like, fans are seeing that the curb has moved up. There's videos to where the first time Truex spins out, like, you can see the curb is coming up. NASCAR keeps it green for whatever reason. And so they head into the chicane again. And it's just wild, man. NASCAR is using these drivers as pawns for entertainment. They don't care about their safety at all, man. Because there's situations to where, let's look at Logano, for example. There's situations to where Logano actually goes under those tires and hits the Armco barrier. I'm not saying that Armco barrier is similar to the one at Pocono where Steve Park and Jr. hit it, because it is more secured. But there's situations to where those tire barriers end up going over the 22 car. The 22 hits the Armco barrier, and then, just luck has it that there's a photographer literally standing where Logano makes impact with the wall. He's able to get out of the way, but if Logano doesn't hit those tires that way, that Armco barrier is extending at least 3, 4, maybe 4.5 feet that way, hitting that photographer. It's better than a fan, I guess, in NASCAR's eyes, but you don't want to have a photographer get killed. Ryan Preece very easily could have slammed into Logano when he's against the tire barrier. Outside of who else got torn up there? The entire field got torn up. And so I understand that the cockpit in these cars are surrounded by pretty thick steel plating, pretty much welded around the entire car, so I don't expect any metal to be going through the firewall underneath the drivers or anything. But going back to the size of that curbing, the higher the thickness is, like, the worse the situation gets for having shrapnel either fly through the plexiglass or fly through the window net of drivers. And on top of that, you still have guys just driving through it. It's wild. Absolutely wild. And so obviously they get rid of the curbing, and then they go through it again. And for whatever reason they're using these curbs, they might as well just put a concrete wall. Just make a concrete wall perpendicular to the racing groove, because it's equivalent to that. Obviously, maybe not quote-unquote as dangerous as running head-on to a concrete barrier, and we'll talk more about that when I get to Keselowski in a moment. But I never went to college. There's people at the track saying, hey, that's going to be your ramp. Twitter is going nuts. I'm going nuts because they're leaving a ramp. Everybody knows it. NASCAR has to know it. The drivers are talking about it. And they still go green, because once you remove that curb, it just opens up the racing line even closer to that jump. And so obviously we get through the restart, which yet again, I don't know why we're going to these tight corners to where these idiot drivers who grew up, maybe there's like 5 or 8 guys who grew up where dying as a child or dying as a teenager was a danger. It was something that you faced every weekend. I would say there's probably about 20% of the field in this NASCAR field that know somebody who's died because of a racing incident. I can think of Harvick, obviously, Truex, Larson losing his friend Jason Johnson in the World of Outlaws, and a couple other guys are at least familiar with, the dangers of racing. But a lot of these Zoomer kids, a lot of these, rich, spoiled guys have never had to worry about dying in a race car. And so I truly believe that they don't have the fear anymore of, hey, this might kill me, because they just constantly see people getting uninjured or getting out, completely unharmed in these situations. They end up driving like a bunch of idiots. And so going back to, these road courses, these guys entering this stuff 4 wide, it's wild, man. Every restart, whoever was on the outside of turn 1 just got dumped into the grass. Larson, Briscoe, it happened all the time. Kurt Busch was one of them earlier in the race. And so when they're heading into turn 6 again, I was expecting Bubba to be the one, because Bubba was stuck on the outside. He had the lane, and Bubba, bless his heart, he's smart. He goes wide. He understands he's gonna go into the air like Corey LaJoie, and he misses the jump. Other people didn't get the hint, and these guys yet again crash for absolutely no reason. And the reason I brought up Dakota was because, look, you can't see anything. The track is completely blocked. There's smoke all over the place. These guys are still staying in it, man. Obviously, Austin Dillon, he's trying to get out of the way. He basically hits a parked car of Michael McDowell, and like, these hits are wild. Like, how can you tell me that NASCAR cares about safety when they constantly not really? Just look at this year. Like, ever since Dave Hoots left race control, these drivers have been put in constant danger. And so, I mean, outside of the danger that these guys have been in constantly, the response from the safety personnel has been insane. Like, Austin has taken a big hit, obviously. The window net is not down, and they are not there to help him out at all. Man, it took him at least a minute, 32 minutes to get there. That's unacceptable for the most famous speedway in the world. Going back to Indianapolis, I don't know why Indy does not have safer barriers everywhere. I don't understand why they have exposed concrete walls in this day and age, and they call themselves the world center of racing. They call themselves the famed Brickyard. Like Keselowski, when he spun out, guess what he hit the first time? An unprotected concrete barrier. I understand he wasn't going fast. I understand he hit it with the rear side. Brandon, you're overreacting. I'm not overreacting. It's hypocritical to say NASCAR cares about safety when they've said before they won't take the Cup Series to a track that has concrete walls, and yet Indianapolis still doesn't have them there. Oh, they're worried about thinning the racing groove for the Indy cars. Okay, whatever. I'd rather have a safer barrier there than a concrete wall. And then so is NASCAR. Are they in charge of determining what speed of a track is safe enough to just have an unprotected barrier like Dirt Bristol, like Indianapolis here? Like, it's wild, absolutely wild, the hypocrisy in the series. And so let's go and look at the red flag area. And so after the first wreck through the chicane, you have James Davidson, who is clearly leaking oil on the track. He goes around for 3 laps under green. We have a 10-lap caution period on top of a red flag to clean up oil across the entire track. That's wild. Who is watching these cars? Fans are seeing that, hey, the 15 is leaking oil. Are you that understaffed? Hire me. Pay me minimum wage, for crying out loud. Send me. I'll watch the track. I'll make sure people aren't leaking oil all over the track. And so they just have to put that. They have to put the just some blank. I always call it kitty litter, but the speedy dry down across the track. And then when you listen to the driver's radio, which they don't show on Radioactive because they don't want to make NASCAR look like a bunch of idiots. They only show like certain things. Kyle Busch is saying that, like, dude, this is wild. There's two to 3 lanes of speedy dry on a 1-lane racetrack right now across the entire thing. And then when they go green again, Chastain is leaking oil too. I was watching it, and I have the video of it. I don't think I'm going to post it because there's some sensitive information on there that I don't really want to post onto YouTube. On the back, some information on the back end that I don't want to be public right now from NASCAR and some certain tracks. Because anyway, but I was telling one of the guys I was with, I was like, because he was saying Chastain has a tire rub. And I was like, dude, Chastain does not have a tire rub. You don't have that much smoke coming out of being parked on the front straightaway. Like, he's leaking something. And he's like, no, it's a tire rub. And I'm like, dude, he's leaking something. He's got liquid going onto the headers. He's leaking something. Something's going on there. And if I can see this from the camera, what is NASCAR doing? And so yet again, Chastain goes around for like 2 to 3 laps, leaking oil all over the track. And then they black flag him coming to the green. Like, what are we doing here? It's because they're trying to get the race in. They're trying to get the race in within their TV window. And NBC should be well aware, and these TV partners should be well aware. This is not a timed event. This is not endurance racing. You can't put a window of these or for these races. You need to have a plan for these to go over your allotted time. I'm sorry we can't watch the amateur golf championship or whatever the hell was on. Yet again, I had a clear feed. I never changed. I'm watching, some Arabic feed. But people were saying that, it went to CNBC or MSNBC. It switched within the last restart. Like, that's wild. That's another thing that, these TV partners are trying to keep their ratings at the very end, and then they still dump their people, or they dump the viewers onto a different channel. Can you imagine, I give F1 a lot of crap because they're pretty hoity-toity, they're pretty rich and everything. But when you look at us, we go to we're trying to be so many different series. They're taking NASCAR to the dirt to appeal to the dirt fans, and it looks like a joke at Bristol, at Knoxville. And then we're trying to do more road course racing. We go to COTA, that's where the F1 races, and we look like a bunch of idiots. And we do this. We just had an IndyCar race here, and yeah, sure, one IndyCar got airborne as well because he hit the little jump. But IndyCar is able to get through this without destroying equipment, whereas both NASCAR races are just absolute wreck fests, and the amount of money being torn up is astronomical. Like, going into this year, when you saw that we had this many road courses as a team owner, you're like, okay, we're not going to tear any cars up there. Maybe we'll plan for a wreck or two, but I don't have to really worry about that. I just have to worry about Talladega and Daytona because we're not really racing side by side at the intermediates. Well, we've had we've had cautions on purpose late in races to stack things up to get excitement, get highlight reels, and we end up wrecking a ton of cars. At the road courses, I think they have been more expensive this year. I think if you add up the road courses and the wrecks that we've had this year and the damage between all the teams, it's probably more than just running the 4 super speedway races. And I hate to say that because I love wrecks and stuff. That's the only reason I watch NASCAR now. But for these teams, the amount of money is crazy. I think Unibet was on a Harvick's car this weekend, and so imagine if you're a new sponsor, you just hopped on Kevin Harvick's car in the Xfinity Series, and you tune in and you're like, what is this? What did we sponsor here? Our car just got torn up. Okay, well, at least tomorrow's going to be better. No, our car is still torn up. And so going back to these older drivers, like, can you imagine being Harvick? You train your entire life to drive stock cars. You get your opportunity in 2001 to replace the most famous driver in the world after a fatality. You stay with RCR. You're devoted, loyal. It doesn't work out. You go win a championship at Stewart-Haas Racing. You're at the top of your game, and then the competition and the competitiveness and the legitimacy of the sport you love, you've been a part of for 20 years, is just being degraded. Like, I can't imagine enjoying this, like having fun in this now. Like, if I'm Harvick, I'm legit saying, man, can I get out of my contract? Can I just go retire? Can I just get out of here? If I'm Truex, dude, I get run over every single time I try and avoid wrecks. Like, you hear Briscoe just lying through his teeth saying, oh, I don't wreck people. I didn't know what I was doing. You know who legit doesn't wreck people? It's Martin Truex Jr. Like, he might complain when people race him hard, but you never see Truex dump people. All you see him is constantly lifting, and he's getting run over from behind. Briscoe, you took Hamlin out. Just admit it. Swing at Hamlin. Hamlin, take a swing. Hamlin, you were more physical with Danica Patrick than you were with Chase Briscoe here. I don't understand these drivers at all. I don't understand it at all. Ryan Newman wrecks in the race. We don't see it at all. We see it in the background. Actually, we had 2 wrecks that we didn't see. So we had Ryan Newman wreck, I think, coming out of stage 2 in the background. Never even talked about him. And then we have a second wreck, I believe, on lap 90 after the first turn back in the field. No, NBC doesn't care. We don't know what's going on. But anyway, Newman gets wrecked. He's destroyed for the entire race. I truly believe, like, Newman, you got CTE. You have not been the same since that injury at Daytona. Brandon, he didn't have an injury. He had a brain bruise. That's not an injury. He recovered. You had a brain bruise. Your car is destroyed. You're millimeters away from death. That's an injury. Like, Newman, just hang it up. Just retire. It's okay. You don't want to be a part of NASCAR anymore. This is not fun. This is not enjoyable. This is wrestling. This is racing disguise. This is wrestling disguised as racing, to where we're trying to strum up stories. We're trying to strum up highlights each and every week, and I mean that's what it is. That's why I made this series, because I don't want this, attached to the DFS stuff, because I'd like people to still listen to my DFS stuff, and I'm never going to mention, like, oh, I can't believe you put money on this race, because I got crucified last time I did that, where a lot of people still feel the same this week, but we've already been down that road. But yeah, like Newman, man, just retire, Newman. You shouldn't even be here. Just retire. Go off into the sunset. Your last sunset should have been the Daytona 500 in 2020, and you didn't even get to enjoy it, because you were racing. You never saw that sunset. Retire. Enjoy the sunset, Newman. Another thing is, I think outside of that, Newman did have trauma, because you got to remember, a month before that, or like a couple weeks before that, he got divorced. His wife left him, and so, Newman, you got 2 kids, you got your wife divorcing you, and so you're most likely, even with all the money you have, you're most likely going to a weekend parent where you see your kid on and off each and every other weekend, and then you almost die. Like, dude, just enjoy your life. Just quit. Newman, just retire. Harvick, it's okay. Just retire. Get out of here. I don't blame you for wanting to leave. I don't know what we're doing here. We're constantly putting drivers in danger, and people get mad at me whenever I say, oh, I just want to see a fatality. At this point, going into Daytona, not only will I be shocked if we don't have a fatality, I'll be disappointed, because NASCAR is trying to injure people. They're trying to injure fans. They're trying to injure people. They don't value the lives of these drivers at all in any series. They don't. Look at the ARCA races. Look at that guy who nearly burned to death at Talladega. Well, Brandon, that's ARCA racing. They don't have the amount of personnel that they have for the Cup Series. Why don't they? Are they just saying the ARCA series is dumb? Like, I know we think it is. It's a joke series, but that doesn't mean you put less safety into it. You just let guys burn in turn 3 for hours and hours. Like, what are we doing here? It's wild. Just everything that could have went wrong in this race, and it's NASCAR's fault. You got 37 cars getting airborne. You got 40 cars leaking fluid. You got people wrecking each other for the lead. Like, how is this fun? Like, how is this enjoyable outside of just, hey, this is Demolition Derby. I'm here to see chaos. Like, I am not here to see racing. And I wish somebody can find the PA sound system, because I want to hear Alan Bestwick's call of both these wrecks on the back straightaway in the chicane. I want to hear it. I want to see how he reacted. Like, that would make my day. Let me hear how Alan Bestwick reacted to all this today, man. That's how it is. It's wild. I got a video coming out that I've been working on in my free time. It's like a little meme video. It should be out later today, but I think that'll be pretty entertaining. Other than that, man, that's about it. That was the most entertained I think I've been for a NASCAR race in a very, very long time, because I just knew it was going to be crazy. I knew people were going to get airborne. I knew they were going to wreck. And it's wild that NASCAR did absolutely nothing to stop it. The drivers did absolutely nothing to stop it. It's crazy. What a race, man. If every race could be like this, I would probably stop putting money on it and then become an even bigger NASCAR fan, to where I would just want to attend these wreck fests, these races. It's crazy. And so hopefully this kind of satisfies everybody. Kind of ranted and raved some here and there. So thank you for listening. If I made you laugh one time, if I made you giggle like a schoolgirl once, or if I made you breathe differently, or maybe you were eating and you forgot how to swallow your food and you choked and I had nothing to do with it, send me $1 on PayPal. Help me out here. So we'll see you guys next time.